Okay, so the first thing we need to do for your line animation is get your photo the right size. So whatever you're using as the background that you're going to trace, you're going to bring it into Photoshop and come into the crop tool. And I have it set up here already, but so you can see it's the width by height by resolution selection, and then you make it 1920 by 1080 pixels, and it'll show up like this with the bounding box. You can adjust it and get your composition all set up however you want it. And then you just double click or hit enter to keep it. And then make sure to do a save as, file save as. And I already have this done, so I would make it 1080 at the end so you know what that is. I'm just gonna hit cancel because I already have it saved. And then we're gonna open it up in After Effects. So remember when you're choosing your photo that you need to have a royalty-free image, and I will put some links to where to get those on the Canvas page. Or you can use your own image, so that's kind of the best thing because you know that has no copyright laws that you're infringing upon. But if you don't use your own image, make sure it's royalty-free and make sure you're following all the copyright laws. Okay, so now we're going to come into After Effects, and you just click on here to make a new composition and make sure to name everything. It's Project 2 line animation, and you're going to have it HDTV 1080, and so make sure the width is 1920, height 1080, and we're going to make it 10 seconds. So the duration here should be 0, 0, 0, 10, 0, 0. Press OK. We're going to bring in that file, the image file that we made. So you're going to come to Import, File, and make sure you get the one that you cropped to 1080. So that's why it's good to do a save as and label things. Okay, so once you've imported your image, you're just going to drag it here. And you don't have to resize it. In fact, you should not resize it because it's the exact size that you need. If your screen is looking funny, just make sure you set it here to fit. Okay, so if you have a lot going on in your photo, you might want to lower the opacity because we're going to be drawing lines over it. So I just like to, lower it a little bit so I can see what I'm doing a little better. And then I'm going to lock it here so I don't mess with it. We just want to keep it as it is. So the first thing we're going to do is make a path with the pen tool, and my animation, I'm going to have a line drawing around these hills, and then I'm going to have a line drawing this mountain, and then I'm going to make a little dotted line as if a person's like moving around on a map or something. So we're going to start in the pen tool here, and just like in Illustrator, you click and then draw another line, and you can drag it out to make it curved and click. So I'm just clicking and dragging, and you are going to spend a lot more time making yours look really great. But for now, I'm just going to make this simple, and we're just making one line here. And if you come up here, you want to make sure the fill is none. So if you click on the fill, make sure you're selected on this one with the red diagonal, and you can make the color whatever you want. You can also pick your color. If you pick this eyedropper tool, I could pick, the color of the mountains here. I'm going to leave mine all white for now, just because I think that's easier for you guys to see. And you can make the stroke thicker or less thick. I'm going to keep mine around 6 so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. So we see that it made its own shape layer, and we're going to make sure to name all our layers just to keep everything really organized. So I'm going to hit enter, double click and hit enter here, and then I'm going to call it hills. I'm going to drop down this arrow and go to contents, and we can see shape 1. Now if you click on shape 1 and come into the selection tool, which is V for the shortcut in your keyboard, then you can edit each of these points, and you can also edit the handles, which come out like that. So you can really do a lot with editing this, and I want you to spend time, zoom in, make yours look great, have it the shape you want it, and match it up to your photo. One thing to remember is that if you click out of that and then you're in the selection tool, it's going to move the whole thing and not the points. So what you want to do is come back and click on the shape here in the layers to be able to select those points and move them. That's something that can get a little annoying. Okay, so we are going to animate this. So in the contents here on your hills layer or your line layer that you just created, go to add and make a trim paths. And that's going to show up this option here. We're going to open it up and I'm going to just show you what it looks like. I'm going to click the stopwatch on end and I'm going to press 0, type in 0, and then I'm going to come down the timeline a little bit. I'm just moving my time indicator down and I'm going to type in 100. So let's see how that looks. Hitting the space bar and you can see it does it for you, which is pretty amazing. This is a great tool. So I'm going to hold shift and select the other keyframe. So both keyframes are selected. I'm going to right click keyframe assistant easy ease just to smooth it out a little bit. I'm going to do the start too, just to show you what that looks like. So I have both of these keyframes selected. If you don't have them, you can click on one, hold shift, click on the other, and I'm going to copy, Command Control C. Then I'm going to move my time indicator back to the first keyframe. I'm going to hit the stopwatch on start and Command Control V to paste. So now we see nothing is happening. But if I take these two start keyframes, I have them both selected, and move them like so, kind of so the first one is right in the middle of the end keyframes, you can watch what happens. Sorry, my computer's a little slow here. End starts to disappear, so it's kind of like chasing the line. So that's a really cool effect that is pretty easy to do. So you can make as many of these lines as you want. I'm going to make a second one with the mountain, and I kind of want my mountain line to start being drawn where the hills line sort of ends. So it's like it's drawing the line for the hills, and then the mountain one gets drawn while it's sort of passing through. So I'm going to click out of here. I'm going to go into my pen tool, and I'm just going to start drawing. Again, you are zooming in and spending a lot more time getting these details looking really great. And I'm just getting this shape right, and you can change the color, you can change the stroke size, and then I'm gonna name it, hit enter, name it mountain. You can also change this color here if that helps you see stuff better. I'm gonna open this up and I'm going to go to add, trim paths, open that up, and then I can have it with the end, can have it 0. And then here make it 100. You see how that looks. And then you can affect the start and stuff and have that disappear, but I'm not going to spend too long on that because I want to show you some other stuff. One thing that I do want you to play around with, I'm going to come back into the hills and I'm going to select all these keyframes and go to the graph editor. That's this icon right here. And you can adjust, make sure you're in the selection tool. You can adjust the curve. There's handles here. You can make the curves faster and slower. So you might, like for mine, if it's going downhill, maybe it's going faster when it's going downhill and slower when it's going uphill. So really take time to play around with these curves, see how they work, adjust where your line is moving faster and where it's moving slower. So that's the graph editor. I'm going to select it again to get out of it. Okay, so I want you to add at least one dotted line, and I'm going to make one, I've seen these like on maps to look like someone's moving through. So I'm going to click out of everything, be in the pen tool, and just going to start drawing like a curvy line. And you can make it go in a loop. You can make it do whatever you want. You can make it look as if someone's going up the mountain. And then you can come into here, name it, hit enter, return. I'm going to name it dotted line and open it up. Contents. You can come to shape and you can be in your selection tool and really adjust this to make it look great. You can make it, spend some time and make it look like it's in perspective. Really take your time here. Okay, to make it dotted, we're going to come down shape 1 to the stroke and see dashes here. So we just have to press the plus button to add, make it dashed, and then press plus again to get that gap. So you can affect these. You can make the dashes bigger. I'm going to make them pretty big so you can see, and I'm going to make the gap bigger so you can see what's happening. And you can see how making them bigger and smaller affects it all. And another thing to do is this line cap item. I would go to the drop down and make that rounded. I think it just looks better, but that's totally an aesthetic choice, and that's up to you. So we are going to add the trim path here, and you can have it start wherever you want. I'm going to hit the stopwatch on end, have it at 0, move down the timeline a little bit, and have it at 100. And then you can select both by holding shift. I think you should do easy ease on everything. I think it just looks better. And while they're selected, I'm going to copy and then come to my timeline indicator, bring it to the first keyframe and hit the start stopwatch and paste. And then I'm going to move this down the same way we did. And you can see how that's moving, and I think that looks pretty cool. I think you should also take time to work with the stroke width and the opacity and the color. And for something like this that's going back into space, you could start with the stroke width being really wide, maybe 10, and then as it moves back into space, it can get smaller and smaller. It can go to 5, and then as it gets back here, you can have it be really small, like 1. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe you can't even see that, but let's try it. So the dots are getting smaller and smaller as they go back into space, and just play around with that. You can see how you can, make it really special, make it go with your image and your photo and the design you want to have. Okay, so we are going to export just the lines that we've created with a transparent background. So I'm going to close all these so we can see the layers that we have. So what I want to do is delete this layer. It's locked, so I have to unlock it first. I'm going to select the JPEG layer, so the image layer that you brought in, and just delete it. So we just have the lines. If you made any other mistakes, if you have messed up lines, delete all the layers you don't need and just keep the layers that you want. Come up to composition, add to render queue. It's going to pop up here. Click on the lossless and change the channels to RGB and alpha. That's what you want. Press OK, and then make sure you have the output to the right place so that you're saving it to your M drive or wherever you have it at home, and just make sure you're saving it to the right folder so it's not lost when you're trying to work on it. So hit render. Okay, so now we're gonna come into Premiere. We're gonna go new project, name it line animation, and make sure you're always saving it into the right folder. I know that this is the folder I want it in, so make sure you have it either in your M Drive folder or on your computer somewhere where you'll be able to find it again. Just press OK, you don't have to worry about anything else. Okay, so we're gonna import what we just did. So file, import. Gonna find what you just made, the MOV file, what you made from After Effects. And we're just gonna drag it into the timeline. And it's automatically gonna be set up with the frames and the size and everything. So if you want to see this bigger, you can just do Command Command plus, or just the plus key to make this longer. So I'm going to move this actually into video 2, and I'm going to import the image file. So the picture that you had, make sure it's the one that's the right size, or this is where it would get annoying if it was the wrong size, because it wouldn't, your lines wouldn't match up with your actual photo. And you can drag this out to be the whole thing, or we're actually not going to have it start right away. So you can see how it plays right on your photo and looks really nice. And here in Premiere you have more control, so you can come and click on the image, go to Effects Controls, and you can affect the opacity drop down here. So you're making keyframes just like you have them in After Effects. So you can have it, the opacity at 0 so we don't see anything. And then you can drag the timeline a little bit, make a keyframe, it's right here. You know, you can make it 50 or whatever. And from here in the effects controls, you can move this around, move your timeline, move the keyframe. You also have handles here that you can adjust, similar to the graph editor thing. So what I want you to do for this is have it just the line animation for a part of your animation, and then have your photo appear and the opacity change. So you can choose however that's going to happen. You know, I want to see most of it is about the line animation, so I want to see more of the line animation, but I do at the end want your image to be revealed so we can see what you created. Mine is not so great, so don't use it as a template. So next thing we're going to do is add music, and from now on I want to make sure you have music in all of your videos because I think it makes them better. So again, same as the picture, it needs to be royalty-free music. So let's see, I will put some links on where to find royalty-free music, and I'm just gonna pick one that I already downloaded to make stuff easier. Okay, so I imported the audio file and now I'm just dragging it into A1. And we can affect the volume here. If I click on that, and we have the volume level. So you can lower it and you can have it fade in with keyframes. So it's actually pretty loud. I'm gonna add a keyframe here and then add another keyframe and make it lower. And I actually like doing it from here. Can drag this out, add keyframes up there, and then have it start almost as nothing. Let's see how that sounds. I think that's better. It's still pretty loud, but so I want you to have it fade in and fade out. Turn my speakers down a little bit. There we go. So make keyframes to have your audio fade in, fade out. Okay, so you're gonna wanna cut the audio so it ends when your animation ends, so it doesn't just keep going on and on forever. So that's Command Control K on the keyboard, and I think up here it's sequence, add, edit. And then you can just click on the part you want to get rid of and see it's now separated, and you can just delete that just to keep it clean. And so you can come in here into your effects controls and add another keyframe, and then a fourth keyframe, and have it fade out. So you can affect the keyframes up here, you can affect them in here, you know, figure out how you like to work, and you can add as many as you want and really make the sound fade in, fade out, make it go with your animation, make it however you want. So from here, you're gonna go to File, Export, Media. And the format is gonna be H.264, and you're gonna match the source. And then you're gonna export it, and that will create your final MP4 that you will put in as the final for your project that you'll put in the N drive folder. I'm not going to do that right now. All right, have fun.